Hi, pals. Almost said friends instead of pals. Knock knock, who's there? Not me. Hi pals, it is Artie, they them pronouns only. I am coming to you with another kind of vulnerable video, I guess. I've talked about tiny aspects of this in other videos, probably other blog posts, probably on Instagram a bit too, and just generally about the internet. But it's something I've been thinking about a lot more recently. So I mentioned here that I am joining a new queer theatre collective that's local, and I went into it with basically the general aim and hope of finding joy in performing again, and in theatre, musical theatre, film, acting, singing, all that sort of thing. You know, not with an aim to turn it into my job or a side hustle or what the fuck ever, just currently with the aim of healing. That's kind of part of my trauma brain and of my past. Also, even though I have a ginormous head, for some reason I cannot keep hats on my head. I have a hat on my head because I'm extremely autistically upset, but also trying not to be, about having had quite an extreme haircut. It's not even that extreme really. It's the same haircut, just shorter. There is nothing wrong with the haircut. I'm just autistic and don't like change, even though I asked for it. So yeah, if you see me fiddling with this hat, or if the hat disappears, just go with it, okay? But yeah, so like I wanted to talk a bit about some of like the awful aspects of growing up as kind of like an outsider, the odd kid in theatre, and what I'm hoping to get from this theatre collective now. A lot of things that I didn't understand about why I hated theatre so much, I understand a lot more now, and that's usually how my body and brain tells me it's time to start like processing and healing those things, because I personally find that you can't heal something you don't understand. All of pretty much my experience of performing arts training and stuff was age 18 and under, before I knew I was trans, non-binary, before I knew I was ADHD autistic, before I knew I was physically disabled in any capacity, chronically ill, all of those things. And I think in a few of my videos, like the ED video and the non-binary diaries video, we'll kind of talk a bit about this as well, but that's in those broader specific topics. This one is going to focus on like the actual aspect of all of these things impacting my experience of being a theatre kid, basically. My back already hurts sitting here, so that's good. Love that for me. So I was in drama classes and clubs and stuff from roughly the age of 6 or 7 until around 18. And I, much like in school, was always the weird one, the fat one, and never the leading role type of casting. Whilst I did feel a lot more safe being myself in some of those spaces as I got a bit older in my teen years, you know, those were spaces where I actually felt like I had friends who I had things in common with, rather than just friends because of coincidence, happenstance, you know, because you're in the same school and whatever, same location. So, you know, we all had that kind of thing to bond over. And to be fair, in a lot of the spaces I was in, there were other kids like me who were a bit weird, who got in trouble for things in school, who, you know, whose only space they felt energized was in a rehearsal room. But it did vary from space to space. because like when I was very young and starting out, it was really difficult because that was when I was at my most painfully shy. Like my mum put me in drama classes because of that reason. Turns out it was just autistic mutism, non-speakingness. But it gave me tools for a mixture of adulthood, but also mainly being in school. It helps me feel more able to speak generally. I have always been on the bigger end of size clothes, of friendship groups I've been in, and all of these sort of performing arts groups I've been in. Occasionally there's maybe one or two people my size or bigger, but that had a really big impact on me in a lot of ways, because it, especially during that time of when I was in these performing arts classes, which was the early 2000s, so it was roughly from like 2000 and I don't know, maybe 4 up to 2012, 2013. Like, that was a bad time for media. Super fatphobic, it was so fun. I don't think performing arts helped me when it came to my self-image and body image. A lot of it was becoming aware that I was different to the other people in the room and not always really being able to understand why. One of them that I could understand was physically. I was different to a lot of the other people who attended my performing arts clubs and classes and stuff in those years. A lot of them were very petite, very skinny. Even a lot of our teachers were very skinny, and that impacts your casting, or it did during that sort of period of time. So yeah, I would definitely never get any of the more fun romantic roles of things. My main castings I've had during that period of my life were the villain, some kind of antagonist, or like just a severely unwell character. Like, I played a lot of mentally ill characters because same, but also like a lot of those castings were like agreed upon by adults in those spaces. And you know, I did really enjoy these roles. There's nothing wrong with playing those roles, but there is something wrong with the fact that those are basically the only roles I was ever allowed. I think the one time I was a romantic interest was in college, and it was when we made our own show based on Funny Bones. The two fucking skeletons who are
basically boyfriends, gay boyfriends, obviously.
I was one of the skeleton girlfriends. Very bizarre, you know? And obviously as I got older in this space, the more harsh reality was that you had to think about your castings, and you had to tone yourself down a lot to fit these casting needs, to be more employable. Because, you know, I spent a lot of my years dyeing my hair in many different colours, and I would always have to dye it back to a natural dark colour if we had any shows coming up. You know, there was a lot of policing over my body and my aesthetic choices that just felt like a prison rather than like a fun way of expressing or experimenting creatively with character. And something, as I've mentioned in many places, is that, you know, the arts pretend to be very liberal and like left-leaning and accepting and open, but they really aren't, because they genuinely have no imagination for casting people who don't fit society's sort of like cishet standards, especially cishet white and able-bodied standards, thin standards too. Something I noticed as an adult trying to navigate some of those castings and spaces, because I wanted to get back into acting because I love it, was noticing that just I didn't fit anyone's casting. Like, I'm not masculine enough for men's roles, I'm not feminine enough for women's roles. I just in either direction of the two genders, I would just never fit any of those boxes to even begin to put together a reel. And it's also one of the reasons why I have put off putting much money into going back into acting, because, or performing generally, because you know, if I'm struggling to find any roles now that don't even pay, I don't think I'm going to have a lot of luck finding roles that do pay to at least make back some of those costs for like headshots. And if I had to go, because I'd probably have to go and get my own show reel filmed, I'd have to, either me or someone else, write these scenes because like there's just nothing much out there casting people like me. And yeah, if you've watched the other videos, you know that I obviously went through and still deal with, because I don't think I'll ever fully heal from that, like the eating disorder or the disordered eating and disordered perception of myself and my body fully. I don't think that'll ever fully go away. But like the struggle I had during those teen years was horrific. I did talk about it more in that video, so I won't go too much into it here because it's relevant but not the point. I do think some parts of that were because I knew my body was basically my product. My body is the instrument that will get me jobs and get me paid. And the idea of like, just because of who I am naturally and what I look like naturally and how I like to decorate myself is not profitable enough. Like those two things couldn't be separated. And then there were other things as well. So like because of my size, there was rarely ever any costumes that actually fit me. I have a lot of awful memories of dresses just sort of being pinned on me, like pinned together, because they, like, the zipper wouldn't do up, because again, the adults in these spaces were not protecting the children involved, or only protecting certain children. I'm sorry, but the fatties did not get any protection from the adults' fatphobia as well. So I had to go on stage with clothes that barely fully covered me. I've always, again, on here, talked a lot about my, like, some of my sensory issues, but also my skin sensitivity. That's always been a fucking bitch. And back in those sorts of days when I was performing, they really would just slap on the thickest, cheapest, fucked up makeup on you, just so that you would come up better on stage or whatever. And like, they would make my face burn, and then taking it off with a wet wipe, face wipe, baby wipe would make my face burn even more. So like there was that aspect of it, but also the aspect of like, I felt so ugly. I just felt so ugly in a lot of these stage productions for years. I hate looking back at any of those things, partly because I remember how it felt, but also because of how I look. I hated what a lot of these adults did to me, basically, including to my hair. So we all know here, I was a very big emo in my teen years, so I had a huge fucking fringe. I've had all kinds of fringes over the years, but a good chunk I just had a really thick emo sweepy fringe. And the ways in which like the teachers and staff involved not only forced me to get it out of my face, but the way that they made it stay out of my face as well was just awful. Like I've said a lot, beauty products have come a long way in the last decade. There are so many better options for tidying your hair, helping to clip or pin fringes out of your face, better skin products, even when it comes to makeup, that are less likely to set everybody in some kind of fucking reaction. Oh, and yeah, we would fucking share them, by the way. Like,
disgusting.
Like, how many children's faces have this shit been put on, my dude? And having done some backstage stuff as well for other performing places, it's the same. Like, you use the same makeup kit on like 30 plus kids. Again, I don't know what it is like right now. Yeah, like the makeup put on me made me feel so ugly, but also made me physically feel very uncomfortable, itchy, and just generally quite distressing to experience. Like, I don't know why so many of these teachers wanted to slap on tons of foundation when I never had any spots. I've always had quite clear skin. I've always had relatively like even skin tone as well. Why did I need, as a child, 2 tons of foundation? Like, it really wasn't necessary, but it happened so often. I had to start advocating for my own needs for myself in that situation, and I had to be firm and vocal about not allowing people to put shit on my like face skin. Like, eyeshadow, eyeliner, mascara was fine, lips was fine. It was literally just like, that was painful and I'd had enough. But yeah, I just felt really fucking ugly in these performances. I think there may be elements of that linked to gender too, because obviously I was very femmed up on a lot of these performances, and just generally never really allowed to have my own kind of agency over how I looked. A lot of those years were spent being squashed into things that didn't fit me and made me feel embarrassed, ashamed, and like a laughingstock. I felt like an outsider because everyone else found this so easy, but I didn't. And then as well, like as everyone gets older, there was a lot of really, really bad diet talk, a lot of really, really bad habits, a lot of weird competitiveness that's just not necessary in those spaces. And like, we all knew who had an eating disorder and which one. We all knew who was smoking. You know, like most of us smoked then. We all knew who had gained weight and wasn't fitting into whatever costume it was for this, that and the other, you know, all those sorts of things. I even had a lot of weird competitiveness between me and my actual friends within those spaces as well. And I remember there was a point when we had to learn how to measure ourselves for costuming and castings. Super fun. Yeah, and I just remember one of my friends making a competition about who had longer legs and bigger boobs and smaller waist, you know, those sorts of weird things. And there was always just a lot of like definitely autistic stuff where other people didn't have to follow these rules, but I did. And if I didn't follow those rules, then I was an asshole. Like, I remember a lot of the time being sort of middle of the pack when it came to my grades. Because of the undiagnosed ADHD, my fucking dudes, that like one time I was like singled out as the best or having done the best at one of our modules, and I was fucking hyped, dude. I was fucking hyped. I was so excited. My friends were excited for me. Oh, but me celebrating that was me shoving it in other people's faces when they did that and more, and just this stuff regular, like,
oh, I'm classically trained in blah blah blah,
and you're like, sick, mate. I was like, I spend the other half of my time in London at drama school, but okay, you and your classically trained blah blah, eat my shorts. So yeah, there's a lot. There's probably more, but these are like the things that come out to me the most. But like, the positives I hope to come from this collective, which I feel like are already showing themselves. One is that a lot of us have had a similar past. We've done performing arts in some capacity, really loved it, but then kind of fell out of love with it because of who we just are as people, are just not really accepted in a lot of spaces, especially like mainstream spaces. And it's been really nice and cathartic to kind of have those conversations about like, yeah, you know, like I was never allowed to be either a leading character or a romantic interest in, you know, like a typical love story. I was never allowed those roles because of how I looked, but now I have that chance. Like, I love media and theatre and music because of the ways that you can kind of translate things in your own way. Like, to me, I hated Shakespeare when I was doing it when I was younger, but actually I really like Shakespeare. I think those plays have so much potential for, especially when it comes to like gender and queerness and things like that, like play with the characters and storylines with marginalized performers, even if you don't actually like change anything about the scripts at all, just casting a bunch of fucking like queer, trans, disabled, people of colour. Did I say anything? I can't remember if there's anything else I've forgotten, but you know, it just casting people who don't look the way you expect a lot of these characters and actors to look in its own, like that alone is queering theatre to me. You don't have to change everything about plays to queer it, because like right now I'm working on a couple of Shakespeare scenes that I will be doing in our showcase, our Dream Role showcase. I haven't really changed anything about the content of the scenes, but the fact that there's going to be 2 to 3 just queer actors in it, the whole concept of that Shakespeare play has changed, and that's exciting to me. I want to do that. I want to be part of like making things from our perspective, and that's what I find very exciting about theatre. I love seeing how people do things. Like Orphan Black is really interesting and exciting to me because it's one actress playing all of these many different, very different characters, or like the way Jodie Comer, I'm dyslexic, dudes, in her like one woman play was extremely interesting, seeing how she portrayed all of these different scenes just by herself with props and with costuming. She never left the stage, and that's really interesting to me, you know. So there's that aspect that I'm hoping as well would just be very healing, of just being able to just do what the fuck ever. Like there's no casting specifics on how characters look. It's just whoever wants to do it, go on then. And like for me, singing is a very euphoric feeling. I sort of team the words euphoric and stimmy together because it's kind of a mixture of gender euphoria but also like neurodivergent euphoria. Like I loved singing for years and years and years, and I was kind of a lot of the time did soprano because it was one of the few I was one of the few people who could hit it, because
Hypermobility syndrome, babes.
the connective tissue disorder is very flexible, so I could reach a lot of those high notes, and was one of the few people who kind of had that capacity of singing it loudly. But whilst that was validating in some ways but also gender weird in others, I had this one moment when I was like 17 or 18 in my part-time course I did in London, where we were preparing for some exams, and our singing teacher kept telling me that I was not allowed to sing any of these songs in like a lower octave, and kept making me sing it really high. I just didn't like it. And especially seeing as I think the song I sang was What Do You Do with a BA in English, which is sung by a man puppet man. Not only like was it not originally in a higher octave, it's literally just a song about like not really knowing what the fuck you're doing now after university, and you've got a really stupid degree, same, and now you've got to just rock on with everything. But I had this one moment where we were all taking it in turns to do what our exam pieces in front of everybody, and this one teacher who we'd literally never had before, and I can't remember her name, but I remember she was a thin white lady, and I think she had very long sort of dark reddish hair, like naturally red hair, and she stopped me quite early on in it and was like,
don't take this the wrong way.
I don't know if that's what she said, but like this is the gist of what she said, but like she was like,
I don't feel like you're the kind of performer who's very like airy fairy, like the way you're singing it. Can you sing it lower?
I was like, thank you, yes I can. And that was probably one of my only moments of like gender and performing euphoria before I realised I was trans. Shout out to you, whoever the fuck you were. I might have to message some people from that course and see if they remember who she is, because like I low-key want to like message her and be like, hey babes, you know that moment that you probably don't fucking remember? Well, I remember it, and that meant the world to me. Thank you. Because since realising I'm trans, one of my big things has been my voice, my vocals, but also unmasking. Unmasking the ADHD and autistic shit, and realising I feel better in many levels in a lower speaking voice, but as well a lower singing voice. Like I think I'm sort of on the upper end of tenor. I can't quite reach those low notes, but I also then can't quite reach the high notes of alto, so I'm in sort of a weird section at the moment. But again, that's where this space is going to be great, is that, you know, some of the people there are experienced or know people who are experienced with working with not only trans voices, but like, yeah, trans voices of people who are and have been on hormones, but also like trans people who haven't been, people with connective tissue disorders as well, because that makes quite a big impact on the process of singing and speaking generally. Yeah, but like it's not going to be, hey, no, you can't fucking do this. It's like, hey, let's see how we can work it so you can do it and feel good doing it. Like nothing is impossible. It's all sort of like a, hey, we can give it a shot, you know, we'll give it a go. And I feel like in some circumstances this is kind of like drama therapy. Like who remembers that being a thing? I've never been, but like I remember it being like a really big thing people were looking into and talking about when I was in this sort of younger period of my life in drama. Where the fuck do I get a drama therapist? What happened to those things? Many questions, no answers. Being in a room of people who get it has been very cathartic. Being in a room with people sharing those stories, but also being aware of possibly being triggering as well, has been cathartic. And just being in a space that's very open to just giving shit a go. We're just gonna live our dreams, you know, we're just gonna live our queer, crip, you know, marginalised performer dreams, because nowhere lets us do it. And it's something I've also noticed a lot of other disabled actors I've followed have also fallen out of love with performing because of these barriers in the industry, where they just don't really respect actors are individual human people, basically. I think generally a lot of people who don't really get what this is like would say, like, why don't you just join any theatre collective? Why don't you just join some local amateur theatre, like locally to you? Why didn't you just start going to classes again? And like mainly it's that these spaces are not very specialised to understand all of this stuff put together. Classes are expensive, and I'm kind of done putting myself through trauma and paying for it. Like,
here you go, here's 50 quid, traumatise me, tell me I'm fat and ugly, and an ugly tram, and we'll never get work.
You know? And then the people who are more specialised are probably more expensive. If not, then amazing, because they understand their clientele, but they can be very hard to find, very in demand, because it's a space in that market that's not really catered to very much or broadly. Like there are just it's the same with pretty much every single fucking market you can think of. There is always a gap when it comes to catering to marginalised people, but like also especially multiply marginalised people and disability, because people just don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They say they care for those communities' money and clout. if you look at or know about the purple pound, I think it is, it's the spending money of disabled people, I think, in the UK, and it's a lot. So they cater to us, but not really. They only do it because they know we have quite a bit of spending power generally in the world, because we're not catered to. So if we think you're catering to us, we like to hope you are, but usually you're not. And then we've had a really shitty experience and paid for it. So yeah, a lot of it is those things. I also am so out of the loop of the performing community in this area. The people I do know are from this collective or from my like Zoom writing groups, which you would have seen me go to all the time in my Camp NaNoWriMo video where I wrote every day in July. And whilst those people as well are really nice and I enjoy seeing and speaking to them, and I think I would attend some of their acting classes they have on, that's just not where I wanted to start again when it came to performing. I wanted to start in a space where there was little to no pressure and just basically infinite possibilities of just doing stuff. Whilst a lot of the people there are kind of more musical theatre people, they've also said that they're open to doing like other stuff, including like filming and things like that. I just want options and availability to experiment and kind of find that joy I used to have for performing again, and just it generally be more of like a fun hobby for now, because I have a lot of stuff that I do to try and make money.
Get clout.
Well, fuck everyone else. I do just kind of want to vibe. Just want to vibe, I don't really want to do this because, this really impacts my life, because if it's really shit and if I don't work well with or for these people, then everyone's going to know about it and hate me for it, even though it's probably their fault. So yeah, I just wanted it to be a space where I could reconnect with those things that I enjoyed and leave those traumatic, awful, shitty things at the door. And who knows, maybe this space will grow to be something bigger than it is. But right now it's just us all vibing, being our best multiply marginalised selves, living our dreams of being all these characters we wanted to be, and reconnecting with those tiny, shriveled up, dead parts of our souls. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because it is something I've been noticing a lot with other people. Though unfortunately a lot of people have been giving up acting, performing generally, because of the state of this, what is it called, career path, not quite community, I can't fucking think. But yeah, like just how difficult it still is. Like, these are people who fit a lot of the other standards as well. Like, these are people who are skinny, white, cis, able-bodied, and they're quitting. Whereas, like, there's a bunch of us who, yeah, I think that illustrates the point enough for itself, that this space is not ready for true representation. So unfortunately, yeah, we do have to go make it ourselves and find joy ourselves and just do other stuff to pay the bills. But I am excited for this. I'm hopeful that will heal some of those wounds. Oh my god, also, fucking hell, I forgot about this one. Right, in our last meet, someone mentioned about being seen as a queer girl and the girls in the changing rooms getting all fucking weird about it and homophobic and not wanting you to just like get changed in there with them. Fucking forgot that I had that experience too, at least once. I actually turned it into a short story for my creative writing degree. Yeah, fucking hell, mate. I'm just glad to not have to worry about those things now. Shocker. Fucking hell, mate. What? You don't have to worry about homophobia? No. Oh, no. Anyway, yeah, that's all I really have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, helps the algo. Leave a comment down below. Share some of your thoughts on this. Maybe some of your experiences of why you also gave up performing like the rest of us. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more of me, usually every week. almost didn't this week because of the haircut. I'm glad I did because it doesn't look that bad. I'm just being a whingy autistic, you know. It's okay though. I treat myself with kindness. It's just an autistic thing. It's okay. I will live. I need to go eat. It is way past lunchtime. Fucking hungry, mate. And I'll see you next week. Bye.